Welcome back to Toolkit for Rape Recovery. It's been so long and I'm so happy to see you again. Episode 10, the last episode you've seen about filing a complaint, was one of the most challenging things I ever had to do. And still, forgiving oneself, forgiving myself might be even a little bit harder. I started working on Toolkit for Rape Recovery when I was 33 and a half. It's not a coincidence that I recorded this episode 11, Forgiving Mainly Oneself, on my 36th birthday. I'm saying that so you'd understand how long exactly it took me to start forgiving myself. Now, the forgiving I'm talking about is not one-dimensional. It's not like I forgive myself and that's it and I never again feel guilty. It took me 2.5 years to be able to record this episode talking about forgiving oneself. But it's the gift I decided to give myself because that's the only way we can start recovering. It seems that as we go forward with the series, the times between each episode are becoming longer and longer, and I guess there is a reason for that. Always the last stages of the process are the hardest to accomplish. And I think here more than ever, forgiving ourselves is one of the biggest challenges we have. In order to forgive ourselves, we need to let go of something very primal, sense of guilt. Whenever we feel guilty, we tend to suffer. And as long as we're guilty, as long as we're suffering, we're continuing to pay for other people's crimes, for the crimes they committed on us, which is totally unfair and should be changed. Now, the change I'm talking about is not permanent. It's not like you'd forgive yourself and that's it, you're done. It will always be part of our biography. It will always be a scar that is very relevant to the person we end up becoming. And there will always be setbacks. We might forgive ourselves most of the time, but then some sort of trigger will take us back and we'll go again through this loop, which we all know very well. However, we can still change the proportions of the time we're forgiving ourselves and loving ourselves and the time that we're feeling guilty and are angry on ourselves. In order to achieve that, we need first to decide to forgive ourselves. Now, it's not easy. It's a really long and hard process. That's why I told you how long it took me to get to this episode. Think of some of those beliefs you hold that eventually talk about the fact that you're to be blamed in what happened to you. For me, for example, I believed that when I was 5, what happened to me was because I was beautiful. When I was 15, what happened to me was because I was a Lolita and I was very sexual and I was transmitting things I wasn't intending to, femininity and sexuality. When I was 20, I was drug raped because I was in a wedding and my emotional state wasn't great and I had a drink and I was wearing a miniskirt. Those are just examples, but they're very similar to beliefs that each and every one of us hold about what happened to us. Now let's replace those beliefs that put the guilt on us in new beliefs that says that we have nothing to do with what happened to us. For example, when I was 5, I was sexually abused because there was a sick person taking advantage of me. When I was 15, I was sexually abused because there was an old man not realizing what law meant and touching a minor. When I was 20, I was drug raped because of a sick person that thought it's okay to drug rape a woman. Or more simple beliefs and less specific ones like, what happened to me was not my fault. I'm not to blame in what happened to me. Now, some of you will be really, really upset just by hearing that. So be patient with yourself. Don't be mad at yourself. The process of recovering is not a linear process and it takes time and you should be very self-aware. Know when are you ready to start working on forgiveness and when you're still in other episodes, and it's okay. Please be soft on yourself. If you watch this episode and you feel that it doesn't talk to you, let it go and go back to that one day when you feel you're ready to start forgiving yourself. Now, take the one belief that was the hardest for you, the one that made you really anxious, and write it down. Write it down on a paper. Put it somewhere you're going to see it daily, next to your bed, in your bathroom, on your computer, in a place you'll see it a lot. And repeat it. Repeat it out loud. I know it sounds stupid, I know it sounds ridiculous, but believe me, it works. Not in the first times. The first times you're going to say it and you'll feel like you're saying something which is not true, which is ridiculous, and it will feel stupid. But slowly it will start creating new connections in your brain and start making you think in a different way. Within time you'll get used to forgiving yourself. And forgiving yourself means also that if you have a setback, you won't be hard on yourself. You don't feel bad. It's normal. It happens to all of us. Getting to forgiveness is probably one of the hardest things one can do. So please, I'm urging you, please, please, please be soft with yourself. Love yourself and treat yourself with the kindness that you deserve. I truly believe you're strong enough to deal with that. I truly believe that each and every one of us that was sexually abused or raped has within him what it takes to deal with that and grow out of that. In order to forgive, we need to accept. We need to accept what happened to us. Now, it's easy to say, it's really hard to do. And as I said, don't be hard with yourself. If it doesn't happen instantly, it will take time. But we need to accept what happened to us as part of our story, as part of our life. I think the way to accept that is trying to find, even if it feels artificial, try to find the good things that came out of that. For example, for me, I feel that if it wasn't for my sexual abuse and rape past, I would not learn to be outspoken, to say what I feel, to say what I need, to say no when I need to say no. I really do believe that without going through this experience, I would not accomplish the journey that you've seen on Toolkit from Rape Recovery. Going from this victim self-pity, very weak person into the strong person I am now, and find myself today in a place where I can have a great, loving, good, positive relationship rather than an abusive one. I believe I wasn't in the place where I feel I'm ready to think about creating the next generation and not holding myself because I'm terrified I will be unable to protect it, to protect them. And that I believe in my ability to fight for my justice and hence fight for other people's justice too. So it's really hard, but I do believe that we need to try and find and think about the good things that happened to us. Make lemonade out of the lemons. Think about it. Find within you those little gifts you got out of what you went through and celebrate them. I know it sounds hard and challenging to find a good thing in a sexual abuse or rape, but it is part of who we are and it is part of the people we became, and I truly and honestly believe that each one of us has within himself what's needed to overcome this awful experience. Now, as I said, it might not be forgiving about everything. It might not be forgiving always. We might still have setbacks and fallbacks, and we still might go and get back to the victim place, a place which is very comfortable for us. So it's really hard to forgive yourself because it means letting go of being a victim, and we all got very used to being victims from a very early age. And as nasty of a place that being a victim is, it's sometimes more familiar to us than being happy, free, or forgive ourselves. The reason I told you how long it took me to accomplish this episode of forgiving myself is so you'd understand that it takes time. It takes a long time and constant work. But I truly and honestly believe that you've got what it takes, that you can get to the stage where you're accepting what happened to you is not your fault, and you're agreeing to forgive the people around you that possibly failed in protecting you, to forgive even the person who did that to you. I know it sounds outrageous, but as we know, most of the people that became abusive were abused themselves. And if we manage to find those places where what we went through shaped the person we are, and loving those places, as hard as it sounds, we might even be able to forgive them. But honestly, I don't mind forgiving them. Don't forgive them. What I do care about is you finding the place in which you can forgive yourselves. The reason I made the YouTube series is so those episodes are always there for you. The process is not linear and it's not the same for everyone. Hence, you can always go back to an episode that you need. You can always watch them in a different order. And if you feel what I'm talking about is very far of you now and you feel you cannot relate or even think about forgiving someone else or yourself, or mainly yourself, don't for now. Let it go. Stop watching the video, but know it's out there and it's ready for you whenever you feel you're ready. I read recently an article by a woman who went through rape by her father, and she was talking about realizing she doesn't need to forgive her mother because her mother was also, to a certain extent, a victim of the situation. Now, obviously it's harder when we talk about sexual abuse within the family, no doubt. But still, if we practice and train to enlarge our awareness, to enlarge our heart, we might be able to find a place of forgiveness even to the person that did that to us. But definitely for the people around us that might have not known how to deal with us, that might have hurt us because they couldn't contain what we went through, and that might have failed in protecting us. However, the most important thing is that we'll find a place in which we're able to forgive ourselves. Forgiving yourself means realizing it's not our fault. Nothing we did that day has to do with what happened to us. Nothing that happened to us that day has to do with something we did. I truly believe you're strong, you're capable, you have what it takes. Episode 12 is about letting go, at least partially. Now, I don't think it's something we can let go of entirely. It will always be part of us. But I do think that with a lot of work, with writing down these new beliefs and saying them out loud again and again, we can start and change the way we think about things. Mainly, stop taking the guilt on yourself, stop blaming yourself, blaming the person who is responsible for that. But generally speaking, kind of let go of blaming and start forgiving. As per always, be kind to yourself, love yourself, treat yourself well, treat yourself with respect. Remember, it's not your fault. Nothing you did has to do with what happened to you. Toolkit for Rape Recovery, episode 11, Forgiving Mainly Oneself. We're getting very close to the end of Toolkit for Rape Recovery. It's been an amazing journey that I could have not done without you. Meanwhile, remember, I love you and love yourself. Be strong. Be kind to yourself, be nice to yourself, respect yourself the way you deserve, and forgive yourself. You've done nothing wrong. Whoa. See you soon in episode 12, Toolkit for Rape Recovery. Thank you for being with me. Would love it if you share.